Holler if you hear me, and welcome to tonight's edition of Art Uncensored. It is the top of the hour, 10 p.m. Eastern, and we are here and together to go and draw for the first time in a long time Miss Fairchild from Gen 13. Oh, yes, yes, yes. She's one that, well, I've done plenty of illustration work of her over the years, but it's been a while since doing anything new in color. And yes, you would have seen that in today's community post that, yeah, I did go out of my way to go and make sure that the nice big new piece of originals that are up in my store are the pen and ink pieces that I did of the one and only Fairchild, as well as I went through the whole Rolodex of pieces I could find multiples of, and multiples of Vampirella, all the other illustrations of Lady Death that we showed last night. Yes, hello there. Well, those were the days. Yes, Gen 13, and I do have that deluxe hardcover that the DC did of the initial miniseries of Gen 13, along with the first few issues of the regular monthly book. But unfortunately, not the one that includes this legendary cover that what I did comes from. But I have been making up for it with like a mix and match of those. A mix and match of having that hardcover along with the back issues of other books. I've other single issues and things like that. I know issue 13 of Gen 13 was a big extravaganza that included having like the Bone and the Ninja Turtles and Spawn and Hellboy all appear. Yeah, Gen 13 and also Lady Death right there. Lady D, which, yes, the other two illustrations of Lady Death that Ruby Hoof did not get buy last night are now up in the store here and here. So if you like those other two illustrations of Lady Death, well, now they are available. Made up for last night's being caught with my pants down with not being ready with, somebody suggesting Lady Death. And I would have thought I'd had these pieces up in the store, but no, now that's correct. As well as the 5 different pen and inks of Vampirella. Since it seems that stores are already gearing up for Halloween in August, and there's the Spirit of Halloween store, the temporary store is already up down there on Gratiot. It might as well go and see that. And yes, we're already enjoying a better day than Rockstar Games. Yes. And also, Nick's been a member for 42 months to say, have fun on the stream tonight, everyone. Yes, 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 yes. And let's hope that, he doesn't have to deal with anybody being caught washing their genitals in the sink or their feet in the toilet. But yeah, 5 different illustrations of Vampirella available. And when it comes to Miss Fairchild, we've got another 5 illustrations of her, but none of the color ones. Now we're taking care of that. Now we got ourselves a nice good old color one we'll be doing tonight. And besides that, take a look at some of them. Yeah, doing all these pieces are why, when it comes to the pop culture related illustrations of mine, the chest of drawers I have for them, well, I don't have room for all the color and pen and ink ones in the pop culture category like I do for all the other ones. I have to have the color pop culture pieces all in a separate room in this cabinet I have in my father's old room. And yes, this one, well, it's a lot simpler. There's no background, but we do get some nice sloping legs and a really nice round muscular ass on Fairchild. And you still get to see her breasts in that angle. Here, the way that the 11x17 ones, even with scanning them, the way that they get framed or get cropped out or whatever, that's still a thing that happens. It seems the 11x14 ones, it's pretty much always like what I draw gets exactly there on the money. Then here, yeah, I've got also when I did a bunch of illustrations like this of different comic book women as cheerleaders. And we also have Abby from Danger Girl, Miss Abby Chase. There are 7 pieces of her that are now for sale. So if you want, you can go and get yourself a nice big extravaganza of getting one of each of these new of these characters and their pieces all now being put up. We got that one. And, of course, her right here with beauty, brawn, and brains. A little crouching. A nice little bit of posing. That was her celebrating the new year. And who's that girl? Yes, Danger Girl. If you ever played the Danger Girl PS1 game or if you owned the toys they did of her. And I remembered, yes, that there was an older pen and ink piece I did of Ghost. And yes, now Ghost is up there to go with the Ghost one we did recently in color. And yes, there is our Ghost in all her glory. Oh, yeah. I still think I screwed up with that floral white on her costume. But this one here, Our Lady Death from last night, there she is, looking absolutely refined, I would say. She definitely deserves the name Lady right there, because the lady is fine. That's my view. It's up to you all. If you if you think that, yeah, the way it looks, the way we've got it up in the store, it looks fine. Because soon I will be scanning the artwork to issue 5 of Encrypted. I know we already got the cover ready, but now it's time for scanning and processing to assemble the printing file for issue 5 of Encrypted, as we are also gathering up everyone's pre-orders and also double-checking, maintaining everyone's subscriptions. Because remember, issue 6 will be the last one that all those who were pre-ordered Encrypted through a 1-year subscription when we launched issue 1's pre-order campaign, that's when it will end. So issue 7's pre-order campaign is when I'm going to be making out all the emails or the email campaign for reminding everybody to renew their subscriptions. Except for Ruby Hoove, of course, who already went and got her 1-year subscription updated for the next year. As we got it all refined and ready for that work right there. And there will be more pop culture pieces there, as well as new, when it comes to the pop culture illustrations and the anime manga illustrations, those will be getting new items put in there from my old archives that have plenty of work I can be putting up in there. I mean, well, I could probably do like a big blowout sale just for the pop culture category pieces alone, and do a thing where it would be like, reduce some kind of blowout where it would be like, 10, reduce the price from like 25 down to 10, and could go and completely sell out the whole category, then reload them, sell out, reload them, sell out, reload them, sell out for like a whole 2-3 months. That's how many of those pop culture illustrations and also color ones that I have that are just overloaded in the house, to the point where it's like almost on the verge of another one of those situations like what happened a few years back, where I went and tore up a whole bunch of work of mine that was just sitting around and not selling anything. So I just ripped it all up and did a video of it. But yes, huzzah and welcome to everybody. And yes, that is right. The thumbnail is not just me whistling Dixie. Yes, we are going to be using Kate Upton as reference for Fairchild tonight. Absolutely. Yes, this is when I was still using the mechanical pencil to do these tracings, as opposed to one of the Pigma microns, which really is one of those things that shows me being, me learning on the job, that I didn't automatically think to go and trace them off using these. But hey, there's other things on my mind, like how I got the call this afternoon about how, tomorrow there's going to be the people coming back. There was the biannual city inspection that happened. Well, now all the things that the city inspector, the changes that they were making, the repairs, the fixes that the city inspector was talking about, well, I've got them coming around at 9 o'clock in the morning to take care of for tomorrow. So yeah, it's going to be a big day around there tomorrow. I don't know how long they're going to take to fix things or whatever, but I do plan on, if it's something that just goes on and on and on well into the afternoon, then that's when I'll just, be out of the house and just let them be. As they haven't done anything before to like get me thinking that they're going to be going through my things. And also, my father was the type of guy who was thinking that everybody was out to get him and everybody wanted to go through his things. So I am not going to be I'm not going to be there stalking them as they're doing their work. That's their repairs to do. And hey, this is my place, but also I know they're not going to be spying on me. Leave my father to think that anybody that he has not verified is somebody that is anybody he sees that hasn't been verified is justification for him to go and cover himself in tinfoil and put all the coat hangers over the ceiling to block out the satellite his ex-wife hired to spy on him. Yes, my mother was living rent-free in his mind, to the point where it became so increasingly strong over the years that she might as well have had a Trump Tower-sized penthouse skyscraper in his head. She was haunting him that much. He was that afraid. He was that much of a pissy little man. Just thinking all kinds of things that were not there. I was one step short of asking him if he was going to go, and I was thinking I was going to go ahead and ask him about, hey, do you think that if I ate Cheerios that she would have planted a microphone in the Cheerios? Or, and when it came to him being afraid of going to sleep, I'd tell him things like, your ex-wife is not going to fly all the way over and break into the house at night just to molest you when you go to sleep, right? You know that is the case. Oh, wait, you don't. Or you know it's the case, but you're too full of yourself to admit to it. But no, it's everybody else who is stupid and paranoid and insane and self-destructive. But remember, confession through projection, because remember, the man also lived in an abject hatred of anything involving Trump. So it would not surprise me if it turns out that also he was the kind of guy that, that he probably wound up inducing the stroke himself just so he wouldn't have to live through another Trump term. And well, much like America, the actual world at large, for the people in America that are actually living, breathing, thinking people, not left-wing lunatics, have all been living a much better life without Kamala and with Trump, so including me. That's the ultimate victory over an idiot, a dipshit like that, is the idea of, well, hey, if you're living so much of a better life with him gone, then you know, that was the ultimate sign of how much of a sack of shit that the man was. There are certain people where if you remove them from a certain equation, then that structure falls. Like, say, look at the Gen 13 franchise. Is there anything Gen 13 that's like even vaguely entertaining or readable at all that isn't, J. Scott Campbell doing it? Besides that one miniseries, because they got Adam Hughes to draw it? Yeah. Gen 13 is unreadable without J. Scott Campbell. It was sold and it was remembered for what J. Scott Campbell brought to being one of the new talents to emerge from the speculator boom of the 90s. Whether you like it or not, that's just how it is. And, with the exception of that Ordinary Heroes 2-issue series, which I have in the basement, because, you needed somebody as iconic as a TNA comic artist to be able to match Campbell, and you got that with Hughes, who may not be the same style as J. Scott Campbell, but yes, both of them know what to do with the cheesecake in comics. So, match set right there. And yes, RJ, that is correct. Living well is what matters, and well, the man was not living well at all, so... And I pretty much knew one way or another, whether it was, someday that I thought would be farther into the distant future that he would be dead and then I would be going on and living on better, or if it was something where eventually I just grew the balls of the spine to get up and leave him in the dust and start my own life, God knows anywhere. Sleeping at a Greyhound bus station bathroom would have been a better, happier place than continuing to live under his shit. But then again, nature itself, his own body went and cut out the middleman and got it over with a lot faster. So much obliged, much better. Absolutely, positively. If your life is that much better, then something is there's a good indication that somebody was a bad egg in the life. Somebody who wouldn't even be able to win at Chinese checkers, let alone win at this game. Against the old adversary, yes. But that's also why seeing anything starring Alec Baldwin probably bothered him, because of his father's resemblance to Alec Baldwin, which was something I saw myself with pictorial evidence, so that's a thing that could be verified. Although I'm sure that my grandfather never blew a giant fucking hole through a woman's chest on the set of a Western. That much is certain. Absolutely, positively. I can attest to that. Oh, yeah. We were going out from the top. because I sip Chris, you drink piss. And that's true, but I really do want to piss on you. Although actually being being on the service end of the I want to piss on you video would probably still have been a better experience than living under him. And yes, you see that we've got for sure around here, we got these little palette knives right here. And we got the gouache paint set to go on and, have them here immediately so that we can get back into what I was saying with using the gouache to do the set of these the 5-pack of these canvases, these like flat, good solid like cardboard, almost like piece kind of canvases, cardstock canvases. We are going to be doing them and using them to go on out into the world of doing more gouache painting. Whether or not there'll be something I'll put up in the store, or if there'll be something that'll be giveaways with pieces I'm selling, that is something to determine. But I'm reminded that when I shipped out the Ruby Hoove, I said to Ruby Hoove, her Lady Death, I forgot to put this as the last of these little small gouache paintings I had done in the package as an extra. So, well, I guess I'll have to wait on like the next order or like the next shipment of Encrypted or someone else's order or commission to go and, package this in. Oh yeah, his is definitely a little rusty. And yeah, besides that, there also is that actually I did get another commission from actually my extended family down in Georgia. My Aunt Donna wanted to go and get a series of Christmas cards from yours truly, which I will be doing. I've got the pieces. I'll have the cardstock. Those blank kind of greeting cards you can go and draw whatever. Got those and be going through the supplies here to see what will be best from the different kind of markers I've got to the gouache or watercolor sets. Or of course, can't ever beat these nice little bits. The Hobby Lobby brand of those type of alcohol ink markers. And these actually do work well. Except, like what the thing with the Copic markers is that you can refill them and you can replace the nibs. But these are disposable, but just use a good swath of them and they'll wear out or run out, whatever, gradually over time and be used in a way where they'll like in a relatively even succession, they'll dry out as opposed to using one or two so much that then those will burn faster and then you get the rest that are just stuck out there. And there's also this nice little experimental set here to see the difference between the Prismacolor ones of these and the Copic ones of these. And put them, because really with what my Aunt Donna commissioned, I'm pretty much going to go through, maybe a good set of I'll start with maybe doing 6 of them. And I think doing those and also doing these, small 9x12 canvases will be a good practice for getting back into the regular completion of things to get me back into that sort of day in, day out mindset of output that's needed to go and do comics. Since remember, we're just around the corner to September when we're going to be getting back into the world of Encrypted with doing issue after issue, with doing issues 8 through 11 and finishing them before the new year so that then we have, 90% of the second year of Encrypted's output ready to go. With doing that and so that then we can really put the attention towards preparing the completed work for what's going to be needed for Justice for One and also for Slick. But then I have a good portion of that finished throughout the next year, and then get ready and steady for the last issue, that final issue of Encrypted. Get it up and get it done, so then we can have that up and moving. And also when it comes to the economics of things, of finishing Encrypted and then going into doing a trade of it, I do think that, maybe it would be better to go and after it's done, not immediately go into the process of building up and promoting and pre-order issue 1 of Justice for One. The idea would then be to go and focus on the pre-order promotion of a trade of Encrypted and do that and have that up and ready for maybe another. Usually it's a month of taking in pre-orders, and then there's the month of printing and processing and shipping everything. But maybe another extra month, or 1 or 2 extra months towards the process of taking in pre-orders for Encrypted as a trade, and then April we'll go and put out the trade and get that up there. and then get into the to the completion and the issue by issue release of Justice for One. I was thinking. That's the idea. I think would probably be a better way to do that instead of like, try to go and immediately go into launching issue 1 of Justice for One after encrypted issue 12, and then also demanding people going in and pre-ordering the encrypted as a trade. Yes, and you'll still have the content of Justice for One being done and incrementally building and building and building and getting the series out there and making it just something that that clip that I'm doing things are delivered and delivered and delivered. Because yes, you can finish the comics, but then also delivering them. Well, I finished and delivered 4 out of the 12 I promised, so that's still another two-thirds left that could go and expose me as incompetent or as failing at this, which is something that nobody wants to see. So let's we've got most of this first year. Now let's make the second year better than that first year, and just keep racking up the work. And Nani Moose just came in. Hi there, just about awake. Hi there, going to sleep. Well then, okay. If you're going to sleep, then enjoy some sweet dreams of Keely Hazel in 2001 topless in Zoo magazine. Or when there was that one former children's show presenter that then her naked photo was projected across the side of Parliament, which is something that is going to be recreated in issue 5 of Encrypted. Yes, the issue Encrypted number 5 is going to have a major plot point where you're going to see Fiona recreating this famous tabloid incident that happened in London in 1999, where there was this model who's appearing nude on the cover of FHM, and her nude cover photo was projected across the side of the Houses of Parliament. They went ahead and did that, and well, talk about something that the Islamic scum that's been invading London would definitely be going and trying to firebomb Parliament over in the name of kill the infidel. So that is, it's the ultimate protest against Islamic trash about a quarter century too early. Although the sad thing is, there would be those dumbass liberal white women that would be saying that is worse than Islamic child brides and honor killings and murder and rape of women, both adult and preteen women in the streets of London. Because they're that fucking prudish, built on their adolescent neuroses about about their ugly duckling complex. Yeah. That are just that fucking insane. And to piss those type of women off even further, here's a little bit of Christina Hendricks.
I was doing a photo shoot the other day, and they said, we really want it to be really natural and show her freckles. And I was like, I'm not a real redhead. I don't have freckles.
No. Freckles are where no. Freckles are where red-haired people store the souls of their victims.
Well, then I wish I had them.
No, do you play?
Yes, Jugs Hendricks right here. Just the presence of Miss Jugs is definitely going to be sending them all to re. Or, speaking of, Ginger Jugs, here is Miss Fairchild from what has to be a more recent cover work that J. Scott Campbell drew. Because I know there was that Wild Siders comic he was supposed to do that then wound up, I think, only getting 1 issue of it done, like that Daredevil Bullseye series that Kevin Smith was supposed to be writing, and then never got finished. Here, that will just lead to Campbell doing cover work exclusively, but, I mean, I can't blame the guy. The guy became such a brand name as a cheesecake cover artist that he doesn't need to do interior work. And one way or another, though, the work he does is immaculate. Ginger Jugs or Ginger Legs, either way, yes. In case you wonder, if there's a real or fictional woman out there that is everything I love about redheads, well, then here is Fairchild. Just sweet love with sweet jugs. Imagine her having a gen active baby and having to nurse the baby. Like I said, you know, the titties like that are made for like a Helen Mirren and those sweet jugs she always kept, you know, waving around. To the point where Tracy Ullman even spoofed her with her promoting a movie called Fish Out Those Old Teats. And eventually in the middle of the interview, she's like, okay, I do this. And Ullman, as Mirren, pulls her top open and starts waving her titties at them. Ooh, it's nice to feel the air on them. Or, I know this isn't a Campbell piece, but still very, very naughty. Then again, remember, she's ginger, so she always loves feeling, naughty. A little naughty, or maybe, intensely naughty. And then there's this Bruce Timm version of her. That's, Tim loved his ladies extremely naughty as well. She's the kind of girl that probably is, being spanked for all the naughty things she does, and then is wondering aloud, why does it always feel good to be so naughty, even though I always get punished for it? Well, because seemingly pleasurable things are meant to tempt girls that should know better. And when you do those things, you not only get spanked, but you only wind up not getting any Christmas presents. So Santa may be hurrying down the chimney tonight, but he's not going to hurry down to give you anything. And if you're one of those women that, actually Rule 34's Santa, then you'll most definitely be disappointed that Santa won't be coming for you. Although you probably would be the type of women that would prefer if Santa would come in you. You know they're out there. You know, if you Google Rule 34 Santa, that there's a whole big thing out there of the women who want to. I bet if you go and look on those like romantasy novels that you find on Amazon, after you look at Morning Glory, Milking Farm, and things like that, you also come across ones where it's, women that want to show Santa how they really have been an awfully good girl. And the present they want from Santa is not in his sack. It's more like his sack and the sausage that goes with it. Because we are very much firmly aware, and my female audience, also is aware, like the female audience that went and bought the, piece of Lady Death last night and all that, we're fully aware and fully acknowledging of women's status as insatiable semen queens. I am not ridiculing all women for being cum-crazed sex vampires. It's the ones that are just doing it indiscriminately or when it's not appropriate. The women that are too dirty. As I believe it was forever lost to clarified when we were wondering about what's the difference between a woman being dirty, a woman being too dirty, or a woman being the right amount of dirty. And well, the right amount of dirty is the woman that does those naughty, nasty things with her man. She is faithful and honest to her man. And she wants her man to go down on her while she's, going through a drive-thru at McDonald's, or her man to finger her at a crowded upscale restaurant, or for her man to make her take her panties off and go running down a sidewalk in the middle of a crowded street with a very short skirt on. Those sort of things. Or the type, that wants to go and make her have sex in her parents' room while her parents are downstairs doing the dishes. And yes, her sleeping, her going and getting busy in her parents' room with you, not with just, the random mailman. Or the next door neighbor guy who, secretly spied on her in the shower.
Please, someone read.
And that's the reason why he wanted that telescope for his, 11th birthday that he still loves and uses to the age of 25. Just as we know. Life is just, and women just being sex mad is something to not fear, but it is something to be on guard for.
Dared in this film?
I do.
Good.
But the ginger that you hear is actually Elle Fanning's character, who she's red in the film, and she plays my daughter.
She's called Ginger?
She's called Ginger.
They call people gingers who have got red hair in the old country. Where I'm from, they go, oh, it's a ginger. Look, he's a ginger.
Or just a just a ginge.
A ginge, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they rhyme it with another word. And,
yeah. it's usually sort of derogatory, right? It's not.
It's kind of joking derogatory. It's not really derogatory. It's kind of a little bit. Yeah.
I was doing a photo shoot the other day, and they said, we really want it to be really natural.
Just jugtastic. Yes. Although I don't think she had any kids, so that's disappointing. I want to go and look this up to see if she had any children. Let's see. Children at all? Sadly, no. No kids. Shit. All right, what else? So who else? Oh, yeah. To see if Dame Helen had any children and put those sweater puppets to the use that we all wanted her to have. Well, she has a stepson, so there's that. Crap. Well, that's disappointing. But, women like that, when they eventually, get older and all that, they probably also do yearn for certain motherhood things. So maybe that's why Helen Mirren was okay with that Saturday Night Live skit where she's backstage and one of the random female cast members asks if she can feel her breasts. And she feels them, and it's such a divine experience that she winds up seeing God in heaven. And then the skit ends with Kristen Wiig walking into the scene and going, "Oh God, I just need to relax." And she jams her face right into Mirren's breasts and motorboats her. Honestly, it would be an honor. And yes, they would be so warm and heavy and supple and milky, even though she just turned 80. I don't care. Giving an 80-year-old a roll in the hay, well, I know that actually could probably kill one of them, so you got to be careful, but then just be careful and just give her a ride. Give her a ride, and then she might give you some complimentary butterscotch candies. I don't know. I know I'm not the only one who doesn't care that Helen Mirren is 80. There's still a lot of us that still want that. And now let's get going on this sweet piece. And there's also a new upload from Mr. Nightmare. And since Mr. Nightmare doesn't screw with us, well, actually, let's also look at considering we're already preemptively doing, all these new monster stuffs up in there. Let's look at this.
Nosferatu.
Yes, the classic Nosferatu from 1925. The rare example of a universally acclaimed, beloved, artsy, horror film that actually has been done right by its remakes. Between the 70s version and now the recent one, which I still haven't seen, and I want to track down to do it for the Halloween special coming up. Yeah, that also is great.
Nosferatu is, to this day, an extraordinary film, and one of the creepy.
And remember, Nosferatu is also in the public domain, so you can go and watch it along or review it all you want. No copyright.
Creepiest movies ever made.
It is the first real adaptation of Dracula, and it is a phenomenal one.
There's an insanity there. You get the sense that the guy maybe really, he's really way too into it. I really like it. And this, we're talking about, silent movies where everybody's overacting.
F.W. Murnau was a truly innovative filmmaker. He wasn't content just to point a camera at things that were moving and record them, and was always experimenting, was always looking at ways to use light, to use setting.
Murnau uses real locations throughout, and to tremendous effect. We go off into the mountains, which are real mountains.
The story serves so that we can watch this incredibly frightening monster.
The bald head and the distorted face and the pointy ears and the huge teeth and the hands with the
Yes. What Joe Biden looks like in real life.
long nails.
He would turn his head. His eyes go first, and then his head follows, and he does this great stuff when Count Orlok rises.
He's not handsome, he's not suave. You wouldn't want to go to the opera with him.
Exactly. And now, oh well. Speaking of jugs,
Don't lean.
I I scooted.
You scooted and then leaned a little bit.
I did.
And you're leaning again. You're leaning again now. You're leaning and tilting. All right, well, we're out of time anyway.
Be here.
Don't lean.
Jugtastic.
Looking to hire expert freelance talent fast? Welcome to Fiverr, the global marketplace for business.
I think most people out there have tried online dating in some way or another by this point. I remember my one and only time using an online dating app almost ended in a legitimate nightmare. Everyone that I knew was using Tinder. Many of my friends were using it for reasons other than dating, and they were having a lot of success. When I finally caved in and decided to give Tinder a chance, I was at an all-time low mentally. The first few days, I think I got a couple of matches, but the conversations went nowhere. Then I matched with Zoe. Before our conversation even went anywhere, I was already attracted to her just based on her pictures alone. We started messaging on the app, and then that evolved into just regular old text messaging. There was an immediate connection between us, or at least I thought there was. I think I was just excited to finally be getting attention from someone. After a lot of small talk, I finally asked her out for drinks. With almost no hesitation, she accepted my offer. That first date night was probably my best experience with Zoe. From there, things only went downhill. After I dropped her off at her house after drinks, she texted me right away. She told me how much fun she had and that she couldn't wait to see me again. At that moment, I felt exactly the same way. Over the next week or so, we started going on more dates and hanging out at my apartment. Things were moving fast, but that was okay with me if I'm being honest. I wasn't looking for my soulmate, I was just looking for some fun, which is something I thought we both established from the beginning. But I think there may have been a miscommunication somewhere. The first time I told her that I couldn't hang out because I already had plans, she lost her mind. I'm not just being an insensitive jerk. She literally drove over to my apartment as I was getting ready to leave and forcibly put herself between the doorway and me. I ended up missing my plans with my friends because I spent way too much time consoling this woman. She stayed over at my apartment that night, and a few hours later, she was talking sweetly to me and acting cute. It was like she was a different person a few hours prior. I remember that night, she kept telling me how cute our babies would be, and how she couldn't wait to start a family with me. Obviously now I realize that's a glaring red flag, but at the time, I was an ignorant and lonely man, and I didn't understand how big of an issue that could be. That isn't a conversation you have with your partner after only hanging out for a week and a half. After that crazy night, I started to wait long periods of time in between text messages before I would answer her. While she would wait for a response, she would send dozens of messages before I would even respond to one message. It was getting out of hand. A few nights later, I had to cancel plans with her because I got stuck at work. Just like when she lost her temper about me hanging out with my friends, she lost her temper again. Since I was at work, I couldn't really respond how I wanted to, so I admit, my answers were a little vague. Almost 2 hours after I canceled our plans, she showed up outside my work. Thankfully, I work at a laboratory and the door stays locked at all times. This didn't stop her from trying. She was pounding on the door, trying to get it to open. Finally, I went down there before some of my colleagues called the police. As soon as I walked out, she started to hit my chest. She was furious and shouting. I apologized for some reason, and then she started to cry. I remember feeling bad for her. I explained why she couldn't just show up here. I also tried to end things with her, and then the anger turned to sadness. It was horrible, and I had no idea what to do. She was upset with herself and begging me to give her one more chance. I agreed, but the condition was that we take things a little slower from now on. She agreed and told me she wouldn't text me for the rest of the night until I texted her, and was not pleased when I had 33 missed text messages from her. I shook my head and went back to work, trying to figure out how to get myself out of this. That night, I got out of work late and went straight home. When I got to my bedroom that night, I noticed that 2 of my dresser drawers were just slightly ajar. That may not seem weird for some people, but I'm so freakishly OCD about drawers and cabinets being closed that I'll check to make sure every drawer in the house is shut before I leave for work, even though my door was locked when I got home. And I know that nobody has a key to my apartment. It felt like somebody had been there. My mind went right to Zoe. I texted her and asked her what she did for the rest of that night. She sent me a picture of her and her parents from earlier that evening and said that they played cards. I tried to believe her, but my gut was telling me otherwise. All night long, I felt horrible. I kept hearing things in the apartment that made me think someone was in there. I kept telling myself that it was my imagination. I ended up getting up and shutting the bedroom door. For some reason, just doing that made me feel safer, even though I could still hear weird sounds from outside the bedroom. I did my best to ignore them. Even my cat, who was sitting on the edge of my bed, kept looking at the door like he was suspicious as well. It was a rough night. That next morning when I woke up, I felt sick. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if all the stress from the Zoe stuff just worked me up enough to make me sick. I was off from work, and I decided to just stay home all day and watch movies on the couch. I was texting Zoe throughout the day. She was surprisingly calm about me canceling plans with her because I was sick. I thought to myself that maybe our last conversation got through to her somehow. That was probably the best day I had talking to her since our first date. I actually enjoyed texting her. We literally texted all day. That night at about 8 p.m., I was on my couch watching a movie.
Then up comes the
and I started to get cold. I went into the bedroom to get a sweatshirt. When I got into the bedroom, I turned on the light. Just reliving this moment is giving me the chills. In the corner of the room is a full-length mirror. When I turned on the light, I saw a person hiding under my bed in the reflection at the bottom of the mirror. Not just any person. It was Zoe. I could see her bright blonde hair. Her face was looking in the opposite direction, but I could see part of it in the reflection. She was just calmly lying there. Instead of freaking out and giving her any indication I saw her, I decided to grab a sweatshirt that was thankfully on the back of the door, and I turned off the light and left the room. I got back into the living room and made sure the movie I was watching was playing loud enough to be heard from the bedroom. Then, as quietly as I could, I left the apartment and delicately shut the door so it wouldn't make a noise. While I was doing this, I continued texting Zoe. Instead of leaving the building, I went into the laundry room and called the police. I told them that a woman I had been seeing was hiding under my bed. Within a few minutes, the police showed up and apprehended Zoe. She was still hiding under the bed. The most horrific part was that she had a huge knife on her, not just like a pocket knife. When the cops asked her if she intended to use that on me, she responded with, "I don't think so, maybe." I showed the police all my text messages just to prove to them that I wasn't lying about anything. I did feel bad for Zoe in a way. Unfortunately, something wasn't clicking in her brain. From what I understand, after this night, Zoe did indeed get the help she needed. Or at least that's what I was told. I never saw her again. Not long after this incident, I moved far away from that town. Once in a while, I'll get a text message from a random number that just says, "Hi." I know that isn't much to go on, but I just know deep down that's Zoe. I understand not every experience with Tinder is like this, but my one experience is enough to be retired for good. I don't know if anyone remembers the joy of dating in 2020, but it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do sometimes. I'm a social guy. I love to go out and meet people. I just enjoy talking to other humans face to face. When that wasn't an option, I felt like an animal trapped in a cage. As things started to open back up slowly, a friend of mine told me to give the online dating thing a try. I downloaded this app called Bumble. I met a lovely young woman by the name of Kelsey. At first glance, she looked legit. We were messaging a bunch and just doing all the early small talk stuff like you do when you first meet someone. The first night we were messaging, Kelsey asked me if I would ever be opposed to meeting up with her at a later, more unconventional meeting time. I didn't understand what she meant. I had a feeling I knew what she was getting at, but I wanted her to say it. Finally, she did. She asked if I would be okay meeting her after midnight. Now, I'm no online dating expert, but if someone asks to meet you at midnight, I feel like you can't help but assume it's just an implied hookup. I started acting playful and flirtatious with her. I was playfully grilling her and asking her why she would want me to meet up so late. She was being flirty with me right back. After some spicy messages, she came clean and told me she was camping with her family at a local lake in my hometown. One of the few activities that was still going on during that time. She told me she would have to wait for her family to go to sleep so she could sneak out. This is when my first alarm bell started to ring. Why would this 26-year-old girl need to sneak out? She's old enough to make her own decisions. I was also a little tweaked out meeting a random stranger at a dark lake at midnight. I started going through her pics again. This chick looked real to me. Her pictures didn't look fake in any way. I decided to check and see if she had social media, and sure enough, she did. Kelsey had a Facebook and an Instagram. This girl was real. I was half worried I was being catfished for a second. Once I decided that she was real and she had a paper trail of social media, I agreed to meet up with her at the lake at 12:30 that night. We continued to message for several hours until I got ready to leave. The lake and campgrounds were about 40 minutes from my house. While I was driving there, Kelsey told me to park on the other side of the lake. For context, if you were to go to the campgrounds, you would drive down a long path to the right of the entrance. If you were going to the public park, which closes at dark, you would drive to the left after the entrance. Each path just leads to a different side of the lake, but tons of paths connect through the park. I asked her why she wanted me to park over there, and she told me it was because it would be a lot more private. The campgrounds were loaded with people. If we met on the other side of the park, the side that's closed, we could be alone. Those were her words. Naturally, I was completely bought in at this point. When I was getting close to the lake, I texted her and told her that I would be in there in about 5 minutes. She texted me back and told me that she was walking over to that side of the lake and she couldn't wait to see me. I got to the lake a little after 12:30. I ignored all the signs that said no trespassing after dark. I wasn't surprised when I was the only car in the massive parking lot. I drove all the way to the end of the lot and parked under a tree, just for a little extra privacy in case the park had security. I texted Kelsey after I parked and told her that I was getting out of my car and walking toward the lake. I actually had some butterflies in my stomach. I was excited about meeting up with this girl. She texted me back and said, "I see you." I looked all around and I didn't see her. I started to loudly whisper her name, but no response. I texted her back and asked her where she was. I told her I didn't see her. She responded by saying that she was right over here. She said, "How can you not see me?" I was super confused and I was starting to get frustrated. I couldn't tell if this was her playing a game or if I was just being an idiot. We did this text dance for a few minutes, and then I told her that she needed to come out to the main path or I was leaving.
So much of a text dance when, really it's in the name of the dance with no pants during COVID.
I looked at my phone, and the 3 typing dots just sat there for a couple of minutes. When she finally messaged me back, she told me to look over to my right. I turned to my right, and a large figure came out from behind the tree and waved. Then, just as quickly, jumped back behind the tree. I stayed where I was for a moment. Something was wrong. The dark figure that popped out from behind the tree looked a lot taller than me, and they were extremely skinny.
Diagnosed with Crohn's disease and struggling with your symptoms? It's not too soon to talk to your doctor about Entyvio for moderate to severe Crohn's and learn about the results you need, including rapid symptom relief and long-term remission. Entyvio is the only gut-focused treatment for Crohn's that helps block inflammation in the gut and works right where you need it.
It was the polar opposite of what Kelsey looked like in her pics. In every picture I saw, Kelsey was short and curvy. Before I did anything, I got a message from Kelsey telling me that she was cold and needed me to warm her up. Instead of messaging her back, I decided to call her. I heard a loud vibration coming from my other side, not in front of me where the figure was just a second ago. I looked to my right and didn't see anything except darkness. Now I was on edge. I thought I could hear someone breathing in the darkness, but I couldn't be sure. I didn't respond to Kelsey yet. She sent me another message. This time, the message was begging me to come over there because she was starting to get sad that I didn't want to see her anymore. Every alarm bell in my head was ringing now. Without thinking, I turned around and sprinted back to my car. While I was running to my car, the figure from behind the tree, as well as another person from the side of me, ran out of the darkness and chased me. I had enough of a head start on them that I was able to make it to my car before they caught me. I got inside my car and locked the door. While I was sitting in there, I looked up through the windshield. The sight of these two running at me will always haunt my dreams. It's a nightmare that's burned into my brain forever. While I was starting my car, the two figures reached my vehicle. The tall, skinny person was standing right in front of my car. It was an older man with a patchy beard. He looked disgusting. It was like his skin was melting off his bones. He had a tattoo of what looked like an eagle on his neck, but it was too dark to be certain. The other person was standing by the driver's side door. This was a larger man. He was basically two of me. He was bald and had this massive beard that went down to his chest. Other than the beard, the most defining characteristic I could make out was a tattoo of a rose on the side of his head. The large man was trying to open the door. The skinny guy was beating on my hood with what looked like a hammer. I was screaming. I was trying to leave, but I was scared that I was going to run the guy over. I don't know why I cared about that, but I did. While the larger man was beating on my door, he ended up cracking my window with his fist. Once he cracked the window, I didn't care anymore. I floored the car and nearly ran over the skinny man. He moved out of the way. While I was driving, I got the last message I would ever receive from the fake Kelsey. All it said was, "I know where you live." I was too afraid to go home. I didn't know if he was bluffing or not, but I didn't want to take the chance. When I finally stopped shaking, I called the police and reported the altercation to them. They looked up this Kelsey online, and as I said before, she was a real person. It's just that whoever these monsters were, they pretended like they were her. They found this sweet girl on Facebook and basically stole her identity. The police notified the real Kelsey, who promptly made her profile private. We tried to track the number, but the phone was already not in service anymore, and the dating profile was deleted. They even questioned the real Kelsey to see if she knew anyone who fit the description of the man I encountered, but she didn't have a clue who they could be. It's been about 6 years since that night, and to my knowledge, these guys have not been caught. I didn't fully understand until that night, but now I know for sure that monsters are everywhere, and you really need to be careful, especially when you meet strangers online. "4 years ago, I moved to a new town for work, a town that I'm still in today. When I first moved here, I was struggling. Not financially, I was struggling in other ways. My whole life, I've struggled to meet people. Not just romantically, but even just friends. I guess I'm a weird guy. Something that I'm proud of today, but growing up, even through my 20s, it was hard. When I arrived in the new town, I realized quickly that the nights felt long and lonely with no friends or anything to do socially. I was texting my friend from back home, and he told me to check out this dating app. I didn't love the idea. It's nothing against online dating, I just never understood it. I'm not the greatest at texting people, and to basically build a relationship off a text conversation seemed impossible to me. My friend continued to convince me, so I finally gave in and downloaded several of the dating apps. A few weeks went by, and sadly, it was rare for me to get a notification on any of the apps. I had given up on them until I got a notification from the lovely Tinder app. I had matched with someone and received a message from a girl named Beth. She had this goth thing going on.
"Beth, I hear you calling."
And I loved it. The only other girl I had dated at the time was also very goth. I have a type, I guess. I started messaging her. Something about her was making it easy for me to text. She had a way of carrying the conversation that made it engaging. One thing I liked about her right away was that she didn't have social media. She called social media the devil. I couldn't agree more. I didn't have any social media accounts either. The very few matches that I got before her on the other apps ended quickly when I said I didn't have Facebook. Apparently that made me a creep. We set up a date, and I was happy when Beth walked into the restaurant. She looked exactly how she looked in her pictures. The date was a success. After that, we went on a few more dates. It started to feel like this was heading into relationship status, and not just let's see where this goes. After a few dates, I could say confidently that Beth was weird. And I don't mean that as an insult. I like weird. She was dark, and at the same time, I just assumed it was like dark type of humor. Once I was completely head over heels, she suggested a different type of date for our next outing. She asked if she could take me on this romantic moonlit hike through the woods to show me this cool spot that was deep in the forest that hardly anyone knew about. I should say I hate the outdoors, but I would have honestly done anything for Beth already, so I agreed to this hike. I was expecting to go on the hike right at nightfall, but she told me it had to be much later. I didn't understand why, but I agreed anyway. That night, we hung out at my place for a while, and at 1 a.m, she said it was time to go. I almost thought she was kidding, but she wasn't. I was driving and she was guiding me. This town and the surrounding area were still very new to me, so I didn't really have a firm grip on where I was going. We had been driving for almost an hour. I had no idea where I was. We were way out in the middle of nowhere, and she told me to pull over. We were far enough out that I didn't have any service on my phone. When I got out of the car, I was looking for a trail of some kind. Beth must have noticed me doing that because she told me that we weren't hiking a trail. She was taking me on a special trail to a place in the woods that was described as magical. I wasn't thrilled, but I trusted Beth. We started walking through the woods. I had boots, jeans, and a zip-up sweatshirt on, and I still found it a little difficult to walk at certain times. I only point that out because Beth was wearing a white dress and these weird sandals that looked like they were made out of wood. This was the first time I'd seen her wear anything that wasn't black. I was amazed that she didn't appear to be struggling at all. While we were walking, she was talking about the weirdest things. I wasn't paying attention to what she was saying that much because I was trying to focus on where I was stepping since it was mostly pitch black. The moon was bright that night, so thankfully there was at least a little light as we navigated the woods. I kept asking her how much further until we got to where we were going, like I was a child in a car. She kept ignoring my question and just laughing every time I asked. At one point, she shouted in excitement so loudly it made me jump. When I asked what happened, she turned around with so much joy in her eyes and told me to look at what she found. I looked up from the ground, expecting to see something like a flower, but instead, Beth was holding a big snake that was very much slithering all over her hand and arm. I fell and landed right on my back. I didn't expect to see a snake 2 inches from my face. Beth laughed and kept asking me if I thought he was cute. I didn't lie. I told her I hated snakes. I had no idea if that snake was venomous or if this area of the US even had venomous snakes. She kept playing with it and bringing it close to my face. Every time she got close, I would seize up. I finally asked her to please let the snake go so we could continue the walk. I was all done with this trip, in case you couldn't tell. She laughed and finally let the snake free. She got close to me and told me not to worry because we're just about there. We walked for another minute or two, and then we were in the decently large clearing. The moon was so bright, and because of the open clearing, it wasn't that dark. She took her sandals off and started to dance and twirl around in the clearing. I was following her as she danced. While I was watching her, I was wondering to myself how long we would have to stay there. She stopped dancing abruptly and was just looking blankly into the forest. Before I said anything, she asked me if I was ready. I didn't know what that meant. I was getting ready to answer her when, I kid you not, 3 other women came out of the woods. They weren't dancing like Beth was just doing. These women burst out of the tree line with a purpose. The shock of seeing other people caused me to fall over again. I didn't even get fully to my feet yet when 3 women grabbed me and were attempting to hold me down. I was in a full panic now. Beth skipped over to this rock and pulled out a beige cloth bag from behind it. I didn't see what was in the bag, but it sounded like tools of some kind hitting each other. I was squirming and screaming. These women were small, but they had a vice grip on me. I felt like I could barely move. 2 of the women looked young, probably in their 20s. The other one was older, and I would say at least 50 years old. Beth was heading over to me with a bag in her hands. What happened next, I still struggle to believe happened to me, even though I was there and witnessed it. The women started to chant something. I'm not a language expert, so I have no idea what it was. Maybe Latin. I had been squirming around so much that the zipper for my sweatshirt was about to break off. I gave it everything I had and pushed forward. By some miracle, I was able to snap the zipper and slide my arms from the sweatshirt. The women who were holding the sweatshirt fell back, and I got up and ran. I ran blindly through the woods, no idea where I was going. I could hear them screaming behind me. They weren't angry screams, they sounded like sad screams. I didn't care. I kept running.
Don't run, we didn't even get to take your pants off yet. Snake chicks are rarely cool, if ever, I agree. I can only assume that's why Snake Men rolled Stag, well, maybe. Yeah, the Manos girls. And hello to Forever, as we are drawing our Lady Fairchild from Gen 13 right here. So everybody say hello to Forever and welcoming on in as we've got this. Small women with vice grips. Konichi, those lady ninjas? Maybe. It might be the lady ninjas. That might just be the case. That just might be the case. And yes, hail to Fairchild for her boobs. Since, well, you can thank this Kate Upton right here, Miss Kate Upton, for being our inspiration tonight. And also to my Aunt Donna for commissioning Christmas cards for me to do for her, which, yes, I will be getting into tomorrow. And Austin says, I'll take Mr. Nightmare Stories over Piranesi by Susanna Clark. Any day? Well, I do too.
I was sure I was running in the wrong direction for my car, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get as far away as possible from Beth and these women. The sound of them crying started to fade and get quieter. I got to the road eventually, and of course, my car was nowhere in sight. I continued running down the road until I got to a 24-hour gas station. I still didn't have service on my phone, but the gas station worker called the police for me. When they showed up, I told them my story, and naturally, he didn't seem to believe me. He started asking me questions about drug use and alcohol. When he asked if I could take him to this clearing in the woods with insane women, I told him that I had no idea where it was and that I was following a girl named Beth. He took down everything I said, but clearly didn't believe me. He drove me to my car, which was several miles away, parked on another road. The only reason we found it was because someone called in an abandoned car on the side of the road. When the police tried to find Beth, they couldn't. She didn't have any social media, and her phone number was apparently a fake number app. Her dating profile had been deleted, or she unmatched me. It dawned on me at that moment that I have never seen where she lived or even what kind of car she drove.
The dude is, yes, that authority man there is clearly in league with Torgo. It'll be dark soon.
It's like she came out of nowhere. Whoever this strange woman was, it felt to me that she made her profile to lure me or someone else into the woods. I have nightmares to this day about this experience. I have no idea what was in that bag, or what she intended to do to me. She never made another attempt to contact me. I know this story seems outrageous, and I've had people over the years not believe it. That's okay. People can believe whatever they want. Unfortunately, this really did happen, and I have to live with this memory forever. For all those who don't believe me, I just hope that you never have your own experience like this, because you never know what can happen in this weird life of ours.
Yes, now, let's see what this does.
The world keeps moving, changing. You need an education that keeps up.
on the night shift. Marvin.
I was 21 when this happened. It was 2017. And at the time, I was working part-time at a gas station a few towns over from where I lived. It was one of those jobs I only planned to keep.
That's one thing where you notice that when it comes to women like this or that sort of, snake women, whatever ritual sacrifice they're trying to do, notice you don't see Latinos doing that. If a Latino wants to go and get even with a man, there is a lack of subterfuge that is worth bringing up. They'll just, they won't lure men out to the woods. They'll just take care of it themselves. They don't need fellow witches to go and take care of it. If Mookie ain't taking care of his kids, they're not going to go and do that sort of ritual. They're just going to go on in and take care of himself. As well, it should go, as how it should go.
For a few months, just until I figured out what I wanted to do next. The shifts were usually easy, a lot of ringing up snacks and cigarettes and stuff like that, more so than the occasional person paying for gas and cash. During the day, it was annoying but normal. The nights were different. The nights dragged. The place felt too bright inside and too dark outside, and every customer felt a little stranger. That night, I was working the closing shift by myself, and I still think about it all the time. The store closed at midnight. Around 9 or 10 at night, the phone started ringing. I answered without thinking anything of it. The second I picked up, I heard this weird voice. It was low and drawn out, like someone trying to sound like a killer in a horror movie.
What's your favorite scary movie? I'm gonna gut you like a fish. Ah, shit, son.
It reminded me right away of Ghostface from Scream. It sounded really forced, like someone trying to do an impression, but yet it was still unsettling. The voice asked if I was all alone in the store. I just stayed quiet for a second, then said something sarcastic like, "Yeah, you got me," and then I hung up. I figured it was one of my friends messing with me. I texted the group chat and asked which one of them was calling the store pretending to be a serial killer. They all found it funny and acted confused at first. One of them asked what I was talking about, and another said he was at home. I assumed they were just lying because that would have been the obvious response.
You want drama? Want to make a scary movie? Rappers coming in on key to Keretubi. Out of scene to Keretubi. Get hard-headed, directed and starring in it. Bad. Slim Shady. Roars to 5'9".
If they wanted to keep the prank going. About 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. It was that same fake horror movie voice. This time they asked why I hung up. I once again sarcastically said, "All right, you got me." The voice let out this soft laugh that sounded weirdly real, not playful like I expected. Then it said I shouldn't be rude to people who know where I am. I hung up again, but this time I felt a little off.
Why do you want to know my name so much? Because I want to know who I'm looking at. What? I want to know who I'm talking to.
It was probably still a joke, but there was something about how calm the person sounded that got me. I kept trying to shake it off. Customers were still coming in at that point, enough to keep me distracted. People getting gas, buying beer, and getting lottery tickets. But every time it slowed down, I found myself looking at the phone. It rang a third time around 10:40. I answered, and I immediately regretted it. The voice asked if the store always got this quiet that late. That got under my skin more than I want to admit. I said nothing and hung up. After that, I texted my friends again, this time more seriously. I said it was getting old and asked who was doing it. Again, they all denied it. I started messaging them one by one. It was the same thing. One was with his girlfriends, one sent me a picture from his basement, one was apparently at a friend's house almost half an hour away. At that point, I started getting annoyed instead of scared. I thought maybe they had someone else doing it, but the truth was, even though the caller never said my name, he was saying things that matched what was happening in the store, like how quiet it was. Around 11, the calls started coming closer together. I stopped answering after the fifth one. The phone would ring and I would stare at it and let it stop on its own. Then a minute or two later, it would ring again. That went on for maybe 15 minutes. I started checking the cameras more. There were a few around the outside of the building and a few inside. The store sat by itself off a road that got pretty dead at night. There was a small patch of woods behind one side of the building and an alley-like area where the dumpster was. The outside cameras weren't great. They had blind spots, and the picture at night was grainy. Still, I kept flipping through them, half expecting to catch one of my idiot friends crouched outside laughing. I didn't see anyone, though. Then I started hearing little sounds outside, which at first I told myself was nothing. For example, a tap somewhere. Then what sounded like a light scrape near the side wall. Then a noise by the back that sounded like someone stepping on loose gravel. It got to a...
There'd be one. Are you alone? No, I'm with Smith & Wesson. Oh, shit. I could be anywhere. I'm like the wind, baby. Yeah, are you sure about that? Come on. You're behind the couch. What? How do you know that? I can see your feet. Oh, shit.
Point where I couldn't dismiss it any longer.
And well, Freba loves the snacks in the background. Goes well with the creepypasta. Well, all right.
I texted the group chat again and told them to seriously stop. I even sent a picture of the empty store and wrote that this wasn't funny anymore. They kept denying it. One of my friends actually called me from his normal number and I told him what was happening. He sounded genuinely confused and said he wasn't joking, nor was he involved in any joke. He told me to lock the door early if I had to. I didn't want to do that unless I really felt I needed to. Part of me still thought I was making too much of it. At around 11:40, one last customer came in. I remember the exact sound of the door opening because it made me jump. I looked up and saw just a regular-looking guy at first, maybe late 20s or 30s. Nothing outwardly crazy about him. He wasn't dirty or dressed weird.
It's raining over where Freba is, so the creepypasta goes well with the rain. Well, perfect combination then.
He just had this blank expression. He didn't say hello. He just walked in and started moving through the aisles. I watched him on the cameras while pretending not to. He took way too long for someone who ended up buying one bag of chips. He kept drifting to different aisles and then stopping. More than once, I saw the top half of his face appear above the shelves while he looked toward the counter. Not in a casual way either. It felt like he was checking on me. I kept thinking maybe he was high, or maybe he was tired, or maybe he was deciding what he wanted. But my stomach had that heavy feeling by then, like my body already knew something was wrong before my brain wanted to admit it. He was in there for at least 8 or 9 minutes. Then he finally came up to the counter with a bag of chips. He still didn't say a word, so I didn't either. I just took the chips and scanned them. When I looked down at the register, everything felt normal for 1 second. Then I looked up and caught him staring directly into my eyes. He held it for maybe 2 seconds. It doesn't sound long, but it was. There was no expression on his face when he did it. Then he looked down and paid. I handed him back the bag, and he turned and walked toward the door. I remember thinking maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he was just a weird guy. But right as he got to the door and pushed it halfway open, he stopped and turned his head back toward me without fully turning his body. His chin was slightly lowered, so his eyes had to look up at me. Then he smiled. I still don't know how to explain that smile without sounding dramatic. It looked like he knew exactly how creepy he looked, and he was doing it on purpose. It made every hair on my body stand up. Then he stepped outside, and instead of walking toward any of the pumps or toward a car, he walked around the side of the building. When he did it, he kept his eyes on me through the glass. He kept that smile, too. I just stood there watching him until the angle cut him off. Then I rushed to the camera monitor and followed him there. I saw him round the building and head toward the side where the woods were. Then he disappeared into the blind spot behind the building. He didn't come back out. I waited maybe 10 seconds, then 20, then a minute. He never reappeared. That was enough for me to lock the door early, even though it was a little before midnight. This part might sound dramatic, but I texted my family and my friends and told them that there was a creepy guy outside, and I wasn't joking anymore. I said if I stopped replying, that meant something probably happened to me because of him. I rushed through the closing stuff as fast as I could. I barely cleaned anything. I kept checking the cameras over and over, expecting to see him pop back out. Nothing. Midnight hit, and I decided I couldn't stay there any longer. I grabbed my stuff, turned off what I needed to turn off.
The dumpster where all the wokies live is absolutely right.
And went to the front door. I unlocked it and stepped out, and that moment of having to relock it was so tense I couldn't have done it quick enough. Once I did, I took off running to my car. It was parked off to the side of the building. I got most of the way there, and just as I reached it and slowed for half a second, I heard fast footsteps. Not running, but worse somehow, like speed-walking steps slapping the pavement in front of the store. I turned and saw him. It was that guy. He had come from the front corner of the building and was moving toward me and my car fast. I yanked my car door open and threw myself inside. I locked the door and started the engine so fast I almost flooded it. The second the car started, I hit reverse and peeled out of that lot. I looked once in the mirror and saw him standing there in the lights watching me leave. The whole drive home, I was sending voice texts and regular texts to everyone saying I was right, that I knew he was going to come out of nowhere. None of that was a prank anymore. The next day, I texted my boss and told him exactly what happened. I said I wasn't doing overnights anymore. He looked at the footage later, and his response honestly made me even angrier. He got kind of defensive and said the guy looked like a regular customer to him. He said maybe I had just gotten spooked because of the phone calls and connected things that weren't connected. That pissed me off more than I can explain. I was the one there. I was the one getting the calls. I was the one who saw that guy disappear around the building and come speed walking at me out of nowhere when I left. I didn't care if the footage didn't fully capture how it felt because I knew what happened. I quit right after that. I didn't even argue much. I just told him if he thought that was normal, he could work the closing shift himself. I ended that job with attitude, and I was proud of it. Even now, many years later, I still think the caller and that guy who came in were the same person, even if I can't prove it.
Need a UGC video for your business? Find me and many other skilled creators on Fiverr. Or you could grab a top camera, add good lighting to make everything pop. Learn the latest trends, stay updated, videos change fast. Plan your content, be consistent and creative. Know your platforms, adapt.
My name is Cadence. I work the closing shift at a small dive bar in the quieter part of my town. The place is right off the highway, but the parking lot also has a back entrance that's available to the general town. It's nothing fancy, just a dimly lit spot where the regulars know each other by name, and the jukebox has been playing the same rotation of classic rock for years. Most of our customers are locals, truckers passing through, and the occasional lost tourist looking for a stiff drink. I like it though. The routine is predictable, the tips are surprisingly decent, and I've learned how to handle the usual bar crowd. The talkers, the flirters, the quiet drinkers, and the ones who just want to be left alone. Weekends are obviously a lot more hectic, but the thing about working during the week is that I'm expected to work my night shifts alone. I don't even get a bar back to pop in now and again. Yeah, it's obviously easier work and slower during the week, but I miss the company of my coworkers. I tend to be pretty vigilant during my shifts because we do get the occasional bar fight considering the kinds of crowds we attract. That's why I clocked the guy immediately. It was sometime after 1 a.m. on a Tuesday when he walked in. If I had to guess, I'd say he was in his late 40s, but he was extremely clean-cut and well-groomed. Not the kind of look you'd expect from a guy his age in an area like this. He was wearing a black turtleneck underneath a black trench coat. Definitely well-dressed, but casual about it. I'm not sure how to explain it, but he had this aura of sophistication about him that makes you think of money. Real money. Not the loud look-at-me kind. He glanced around slowly before walking swiftly over to the bar and taking a seat. I also remember him having oddly good posture, but that's neither here nor there. When I walked over, He glanced at the bottles behind me and ordered something top shelf without hesitation. As I was pouring his drink, he asked me if I liked working here with a smile on his face. It was a normal enough question, so I answered him honestly. I told him yeah and smiled back. I then made a joke about being a bartender or something. I wish I could say I got a creepy vibe from him, but that's not the energy he was giving off. He genuinely seemed like a stand-up guy, kind of like the single dad at his kid's baseball game that gives the whole team a high five. He chatted with me for a bit, which I didn't mind since the bar was pretty quiet at that point. Eventually, he asked me if I ever thought about doing something bigger, which I admit was somewhat bizarre. Again though, not a totally creepy question given the nature of the situation. I gave him my standard bartender smile and told him I was happy for now. He nodded and sipped his drink, seemingly disappointed at my answer for reasons I didn't understand. After a long pause, he asked me what time I got off out of nowhere. That question surprised me. I hadn't picked up any kind of flirting from him whatsoever, so I was a little disappointed to discover that our conversation had just been another one of those empty attempts at getting my number. I smiled and gave him a vague answer, trying to brush him off in a friendly way without seeming uptight. Before he could answer, I busied myself and began wiping down the counter, but he didn't press. He just smiled like he already knew, then drained his drink and pulled out a crisp $100 bill, laying it gently on the bar like it was nothing. Then, without another word, he walked out into the night. I didn't really know what to make of the encounter. I know it sounds like nothing, but his demeanor was just so far off my radar that I was intrigued. Either way, I figured I was never going to see him again and got on with my life. As it would turn out, though, I was wrong. About a week later, he came back. Only this time, he wasn't alone. There was a woman with him. She drew my attention since I hadn't seen her before. She looked like she was in her mid-30s and was dressed in a way that didn't quite match her age. Trendy, but off, like someone trying a little too hard to blend in with a younger crowd. I watched her closely as the two of them approached the bar. Everything about her seemed calculated, from the way she smiled too easily to the way she leaned against the bar like we were already friends. As I was setting down napkins in front of them, the very first thing she said to me wasn't a hello or a drink order, but a compliment. She put on this overly joyful smile and said, "You're so pretty." Her fingers brushed against my arm as she said it, lingering just a second longer than normal. I laughed and thanked her, but I could instantly tell that something was off about this woman. The man didn't speak, which I thought was also a little strange given that he had been so talkative last time. They ordered drinks and poured them, and that's when questions came flooding in. The woman asked me how long I'd been working here, along with how old I was and a bunch of other small talk questions like that. I answered in short, polite sentences, but I got the sense that this wasn't small talk. She was studying me. At one point, she looked over at the man, and it seemed like they were communicating despite not speaking. She looked back at me and told me that she ran an exclusive event club. She leaned in a bit as she said it, lowering her voice as if to prevent her being overheard by another patron. She told me that she's always looking for young, fun people for private parties, and that I'd make a killing. 10 grand for a weekend. I let out a small, forced laugh and told her it sounded too good to be true. She insisted that it was real and told me that a bunch of girls like me worked for them. Her smile never faltered at any moment.
Then she asked me to get nipple to nipple and wanted me to be a regular Saturday night thing. And expected me to do a striptease to Hoochie Coochie Man because an old guy who basically owns the town started demanding it. If you remember Roadhouse, yes.
Which was starting to creep me out. She steered the conversation back to the job, circling around the same words. Fun, safe, exclusive. Then, casually, she said, "You should step outside for a second. There's someone who can explain it better." My pulse kicked up. I wasn't playing around at that point. I didn't even bother pretending like I wasn't creeped out. "I'm good," I said in a firm voice. No smile on my face this time. Just then, a group of customers walked in, laughing and talking loudly. The woman's expression changed in an instant.
Yes. There are few films as classic as Roadhouse.
Her friendly mask slipping just slightly before she turned to the man beside her. Without another word, they left. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't unsettled after that. Those random people had just propositioned me for God knows what. I told my coworkers and my boss about the situation, and we all agreed to keep an eye out should those people return. My boss assured me that he was always a 15-minute drive away should I need him, and the bar's security cameras were typically enough.
This is reminding you of a speakeasy. So there's a speakeasy where women try to recruit other women into prostitution. Okay, that's good to know. And well, yeah, we all love the green and the purple on Miss Fairchild around here, especially with her heavy jugs.
To deter any misbehavior. There wasn't really much I could do beyond that. It's not like those people had done anything illegal. I tried to push it out of my head, but a few nights later, after closing, I saw the car. It was parked across the street, engine off, just sitting there. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, but the feeling of being watched crawled over my skin like static. As I walked to my car, I kept my head down, my keys clutched tight in my hand. When I pulled out of the lot, I checked my mirrors. The car followed. It stayed back just enough to avoid suspicion, but every turn I made, it was still there. I took a random turn onto a side street, and it followed. Another, still there. I started freaking out internally. I knew it was them. I forced myself to stay calm, to think. Then, without hesitating, I navigated and pulled into the parking lot of a police station, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles practically turned white. The second I pulled in, the car sped off.
Your AI model looks right, but the details still feel off. Wrong dimensions, lost details, unstable structures. High 3D model 3.0 reconstructs complex.
Nothing happened after that for a while, but I knew it wasn't over. It turned out I was right. It was a slow weekday shift, barely anyone coming in. By midnight, I was wiping down the counter, half thinking about closing early, when the door creaked open. It was the woman. I immediately sent my boss a text as inconspicuously as I possibly could. I looked back up, and the woman was staring at me with that same artificial smile. She walked slowly to the bar and sat down with her hands folded neatly. I was debating just telling her to leave when she said, "Thought I'd come check on you." My stomach started twisting, but I did my best to hide it. I told her we were about to close and that she had to leave. But she made this pouty face and asked for just one old-fashioned. I thought about denying her, but I figured pouring the drink would stall her long enough for my boss to arrive. So I turned around and got started, trying to keep my cool. And then I heard it. The soft, unmistakable click of the front door shutting. I whipped around. The woman was gone. I felt this awful pit in my stomach as I stepped toward the entrance. Through the glass, I saw it. A black van idling just outside. Without thinking, I locked the door as quickly as I could. But then, metal rattling from the back door. Someone was trying to get in. I didn't think. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could, a metal shaker, and clutched it like a weapon as I dialed 911 with my other hand. There was no way the police would get there in time, so I thought about making a run for it out the front door. But I didn't for whatever reason. I was bracing myself for a fight when I saw headlights pulling into the lot. It was my boss. The sounds on the back door suddenly stopped, and a few seconds later, the van pulled out of the lot with a screech. I embraced my boss and told him what had happened.
Well, Freville goes further to say, dude, there is a huge issue in New York bars and girls getting drugged for real. Since 2020, and it's getting worse, they're being trafficked like crazy. And then you see why people in cities like that wind up cheering movies like Death Wish or Citizen Vigilante. And there's not a goddamn thing Jon Stewart can do about it, because he goes into the city to shoot The Daily Show and then gets back to his upstate mansion, where he doesn't have to deal with any effects on his family or on his kin, on himself, of dealing with shit like that. I can't help but notice. And probably it'll just be, oh, they deserve to be punished. They deserve that because those women didn't vote for Mamdani. Well, now we got some other things in here besides the hair.
Happened, and he said he had gotten the license plate of the van as it was leaving. When the cops arrived, my boss reviewed the security footage with them. It was worse than I had imagined. Just before the woman left, the cameras had captured 2 masked figures crouching near the front door, waiting. There was another person in the back who was banging on the door with his fist, clearly trying to flush me out to the front. It was downright horrifying. To make matters worse, the plate number my boss had caught turned out to be unregistered. It's been quite a while since this incident, but no progress has been made. The only good news to come out of the whole thing is that my boss doesn't make me work alone anymore. Despite that, I'm still extremely
Yes, and if I ever hear a trafficker getting unveiled, I will not shed tears. Yes. Especially since they all universally are Islamic or voting Democrat some other way.
uneasy anytime I'm scheduled for a night shift. I still question how they knew I'd be working alone. It doesn't make any sense. Even now, I often think about what would have happened had I given in to fear and run out the front door. I used to work the night shift at a gas station / convenience store off a quiet stretch of highway. I say used to because after what happened to me a few months ago, I won't work a night shift again. It's a small station, the kind that barely gets any business once it gets late. Most of my shift was spent restocking shelves, wiping down counters, and occasionally ringing up a trucker or traveler passing through. I remember the whole thing vividly. It was just past 2:30 in the morning. By then, even the truckers had mostly dried up, and I was left with basically nothing to do. I scrolled mindlessly on my phone, trying to kill some time. At one point, I stepped outside for some air, rubbing my hands together against the cold. I exhaled a few times, watching my breath disappear in the cold. The parking lot was empty, just the pumps, the road, and the dark stretch of trees beyond. The neon sign flickered faintly, and I remember it being hazy out, like you could literally see the moisture in the air. Even with the highway not too far off, it was pretty silent out there. Right as I was about to walk back towards the store, I noticed something move out of the corner of my eye. I whipped my head around and realized there was a person standing behind one of the pumps. How had I not noticed him earlier? He was wearing a dark red hoodie with the hood up, and he had both hands shoved in his pockets. There wasn't a car in sight, so he obviously wasn't fueling up. The only thing was, he didn't seem to be heading towards the store either. He was just standing there, half turned toward the store like he was watching me. At first, I figured maybe he was waiting for...
Oh, yes, that too, forever brings up illegals hitting on girls in bars, putting a zombie drug just by touch. So if a girl is taken on CCT, when she goes missing, it looks like nothing happened, like she went, willingly with a guy. The drug, once it touches you, you do whatever that person says without fighting back like a frickin' zombie. So yeah, most definitely something that people like Vito Gesualdi or Bill Clinton have access to.
Someone, but something about the way he moved rubbed me the wrong way. He was kind of shuffling about in this circular pattern. I entered the store, but made sure to keep an eye on him through the glass. I kept track of him while pretending not to, hoping someone would drive up and pick him up or something. But after a few minutes, he started walking toward the door, slow at first, then suddenly pushing inside like he'd made up his mind all at once. He walked up to the counter, but didn't say anything right away, just stared at me like he was sizing me up. Then, in a rushed, almost rehearsed way, he muttered that his car had broken down just before the pumps. He said he needed a jump or maybe just a little gas to get to the next town. I was literally shocked. He wasn't even trying to make his story believable. Like I couldn't believe he actually expected me to buy his BS story. I offered to call a tow truck instead. No, he said, too quick, shaking his head. He just needed a flashlight, maybe some help checking under the hood. Something was definitely off, that much was true. The way he spoke, the way he watched my reaction, it felt like a test. To be fair though, people walking into gas stations at that hour are usually a little strange, and I started wondering whether he actually needed help and was just an odd person or on something. I asked him where his car was parked, and he told me it was just beyond the highway entrance. I was obviously skeptical, but then he pointed at the monitor behind me. I turned to look at the screen.
If I find anyone I know has one of those zombie drugs, their impending accidental OD will be a tragedy for me. Oh, yes. And then also, before the OD really gets into effect, tell them to then say, oh, yeah, tell Max Carson I know where he lives.
And to my surprise, there actually was a car parked out there. I thought to myself, oh crap, maybe this guy really does need help. And that's when it hit me. I had literally just been outside, and I would have remembered a car parked out there. I glanced back at the monitor and saw the slightest movement near the car's back bumper. Someone was crouching just out of view. A cold wave of dread hit me. I forced a casual smile and agreed to help the guy, but not before telling him I needed to grab my phone from the back office. I turned slowly, not wanting to spook him. But the second I was out of his direct sight, I slammed my hand onto the emergency panic button under the counter. The alarm went off instantly, screeching through the store. I expected him to attack me, but what he did instead was even more unsettling. His nervous energy disappeared. No more fake urgency, no more shifting from foot to foot. He actually relaxed. His whole body language shifted, and then he smiled. Not a panic smile, not an embarrassed one either. A slow, knowing grin, like he had all the time in the world, like this was amusing to him. I was in shock. I didn't even have time to get physical with him. In one fluid motion, he turned and bolted. I ran to the monitors just in time to see both of them take off. Not toward the car, but into the woods behind the station. The car just sat there, engine off, headlights off. No one inside. By the time the police arrived, it was exactly as I saw it. The car was still there, but the men were gone. No footprints leading away, no sign of them anywhere. And then one of the officers pointed something out. Something I hadn't noticed before. The front passenger door was open. There had been a third person inside the whole time. The police took my statement down, I turned over the surveillance footage, and that was that. A few days later, they followed up with me. They had the car towed and ran the plates. Turned out, it had been reported stolen nearly a week earlier, over 100 miles away. No one had come forward to claim it, no reports of missing persons, no other crimes linked to it, just an abandoned vehicle in the middle of nowhere with no explanation. That was months ago, and still nothing. I don't know why convenience stores are such popular targets, but I can say for sure that I will never work another night shift again.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside. First, go to Riverside and open an account. When you're ready to record.
And hello to Kim right there. Everybody say hello to Kim coming on in, as she has been successfully recovering from her successful surgery. So everyone's continued thoughts and prayers so that she will continue to grow and develop, positively on the back of surviving this experience. And also, as we are now celebrating with shipping out another piece, yes, the Lady Death piece that went and was shipped out earlier. That went up and out successfully. And also with the Christmas, the very early Christmas card commissions I got from my Aunt Donna down in Georgia. So yes, we have been doing very well all around here. Let's hope that Kim will also be doing well too. Maybe some kangaroo meat will help. Oh, crap. Oh, wait, no. Absolutely, positively glad to hear it. From everyone's glad to hear it. So, on we go with our lady here, Miss Fairchild. And also don't forget about last night's Lady Death having gone on. And here she is in her completed form there in the store. And I did make up for lost time with Ruby Hoove with now the other illustrations I have of Lady Death are available in the store. Yes, several weeks of healing, oh yes, that's several more. And we'll be here cheering along for you through every single week of it.
This happened a couple weeks ago. I work the night shift at Walmart. It's not the worst job in the world, but after a while, it starts to feel like you're just floating through time. The nights blend together. Same shelves, same routine, same dull hum of the overhead lights. Hopefully something better comes along. I usually hang out in and stock the electronics section, which is nice because it's quieter than the other areas. People don't exactly come rushing in at 2 a.m. to buy phone chargers.
If Forever says, dude, if I start dating again, would love her to look like a Fairchild or Lady Death with a bit of luck. Well, yes, I think we all would. A Lady Death or a Fairchild, or maybe a Fairchild I would prefer, actually. But that's just my love of redheads out there. As I've been very, very, not indiscreet about for a good long while. Saint Anger will go to find my way. Bong bong, bong bong. Lifestyle, bong bong determines my death style. My lifestyle, bong bong determines my death style. Bong, bum. And hey, listen, a redhead would be nice. Can't lie about that. Yes. Although, as I've said before, when it comes to dating a redhead, train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, because they're going to be very, very physically taxing. They will push you to the limit. They will be, the demanding 10 more yards till touchdown. And then they'll be demanding even more. And possibly laughing maniacally while screaming about how they are the great Pazuzu. They will bring the famine and the flood and destruction to all, and that they will make you enslaved to their servitude for all of eternity. Ha 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 ha. Exactly. Exactly how they go. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-bum. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-bung. Take care of that. My lifestyle, bong bong determines my death style. My lifestyle, bong bong. Get them fiery, fiery. They're one of the few kinds of white women that can be as fiery as a Latina. There is a possibility that a ginger lady out there can actually bring a Latina to heel. She comes in all yelling about, we ain't gonna take care of your kids, Mookie. And then in comes Caitlin right here, and they'll step away. They'll step away and then leave our ginger right here, Caitlin, to go and drain you of absolutely positively all fluids, to the point where she most definitely is the type of woman that has a little IV drip next to her bed and knows how to properly administer it and everything, even though she didn't go to nursing school. But she just has enough experience with, the near fatal draining of men's balls that she has to go and be ready. Be ready for the fire. The absolute insatiable ginger fire, the demanding inferno, the rampant feminine cum hunger that demands to be satisfied. That sort of situation. And I'm sure that some of the men in the audience have experienced that, and that some of the women in the audience have at least encountered a woman who, they had a friend or they knew a lady that at least was like that, who just absolutely positively may have been a real life succubus. The type of woman that really did live to feed on men's seed and just drained them and drained them and drained them. And every time they drain them, and fatally, they are, at least some of them are sad about it. It's just that they have urges and needs and wants. And, at least with some of them, it's not their fault that a man's body cannot keep up with their insatiable desire. That's what makes them actually tragic, as opposed to, what would you see with those stupid, overrated Anne Rice vampires?
And Bluetooth speakers. Most of the customers are either night owls killing time or truckers grabbing last-minute supplies before heading back on the road. That's why I noticed him. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another guy wandering the aisles, probably waiting for someone. But after a few minutes, I realized he wasn't shopping. He wasn't even pretending to. He just kept appearing. Every time I glanced up, he was lingering nearby, hovering in the next aisle over or standing a little too still by the clearance section. He wasn't looking at anything. He was just standing there, watching me. I told myself I was overthinking it. The store is big and maybe he was just taking his time. But the way he moved, always just close enough for me to notice, never actually picking anything up, it set something deep in my gut on edge. I was waiting for him to just get on with it and ask for my number, but he never approached me. It was like he wanted me to see him, which didn't make any sense to me. I went to radio someone about it, but realized that the batteries in my radio must have been dead because it wasn't working. Eventually, I started debating whether I should go find a manager when I felt a hand wrap around my arm. I nearly jumped out of my skin, but before I could react, a woman's voice rang out loud. Friendly, overly familiar. She exclaimed, "There you are," before going on a little spiel about how she had been looking all over for me. I turned, completely thrown off, and saw a woman I had never seen before in my life. She was smiling, her grip firm on my arm, like we were old friends reuniting. Before I could say anything, she leaned in and whispered, her tone dropping to something low and urgent. "That guy's been recording you. Follow me." My stomach dropped. I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance back. The man was still there, only now he wasn't even pretending to browse. He was staring right at me. A cold wave of fear crept over me. I let her pull me. I didn't even question it. The way she grabbed my arm, the way she spoke so loud and casually, like we were two old friends reuniting, I clung to it. I was beyond grateful that someone had realized what was going on and put herself in an uncomfortable position just to help me. She kept up the act as we walked, rambling about something, maybe a trip she had taken, maybe an inside joke we supposedly shared. I barely processed the words. My thoughts were stuck on him. Had he really been recording me? That was...
I've worked as so many retail places. I had to stop a ton of dudes from following women. It can get wild. I most definitely believe you, even before seeing these stories right here.
Creepy as hell. I wanted to know if he was still following us, but I couldn't muster the courage to turn around just yet. The woman steered me through the aisles, moving fast. I barely noticed where we were going, only that we were going, that the distance between me and that man was growing. In all honesty, I was kind of expecting her to quit the pretending to know me at some point, but she kept it up. At one point, it was getting a little uncomfortable, so I glanced behind me, and to my relief, that man was no longer following. The woman kept pulling me forward, though. I told her that we were good now and that we should probably go find my manager, but she just squeezed my arm tighter, telling me that he was lurking somewhere. I thought to myself, so what? What's he gonna do in a store full of employees? I was obviously worried at first because no one was around, but now that I wasn't alone, I started realizing that there wasn't much of a point in being scared anymore. I told her this, but she continued moving. I told her I was serious and planted my feet, twisting my arm slightly to loosen her grip. "You can let go now," I said, but she didn't. She smiled at me, but something in it was off. "Come on, just a little further," she said, basically tugging me at that point. I glanced around. The store was basically dead. We had moved past the registers, past the self-checkout, past the aisles that saw the most foot traffic.
Flava says that years I had to go lose someone following me on the road. It was wild that this person trailed me for a few miles, not knowing what would happen. Yeah, that can be scary out there in the middle of God knows where. And then that's happening, that's stalking.
The warehouse section loomed ahead, dimly lit and nearly empty. Beyond that was the side exit, the one without cameras, the one employees used for loading shipments. That's when it dawned on me. She was leading me straight to the exit. I didn't think. I screamed for help as I yanked my arm free of her grasp with all my might. She lost her grip just enough for me to pull free. I didn't waste another second. I turned and ran toward the front of the store. As I fled, she yelled out something behind me. She yelled for me to come back, followed by my name, which I hadn't given her. I kept running until I saw one of my coworkers who was running toward me, most likely reacting to my screaming. I told him to call security, which he promptly did. That woman was long gone, though. By the time I told my story to the security guards, that woman and that man were nowhere in sight. They reviewed the security footage, and just as I suspected, the woman and man walked into the store together. She had been with him the entire time. The man's face was clear as day in one of the frames, but hers was always turned away. I had a feeling she was the mastermind behind the whole thing, so I was infuriated that the cameras hadn't picked her face up. Every second of it had been planned. The police got involved, and the whole thing went down as a failed abduction attempt. I'm still waiting for a resolution about it. That man should definitely be easy to track down, given his face was caught on camera. I have no idea how that woman knew my name. That's what terrifies me the most. Those people hadn't just picked me at random. I was a direct target.
Websites your competitors don't want you to know, part 2.
All you do is go to this website, and it lets you find out exactly how much your competitors are making by showing you how much traffic they're getting, where the traffic's coming from, and even which social media platform is driving the most visits. It has a complete breakdown of all the recent ads they've been running, what type of keywords they rank for.
And what made it worse to forever was that I was 200 miles away from home on a camping, coming home from a camping trip. Oh, Jesus. That is truly, truly some massive fear to have running through your mind while also dealing with that shit. Just, oh, Jesus. Sweet, sweet hell.
It was 2022. I was living in the Bay Area at the time, Oakland specifically, and I'd driven up to visit my parents in Eureka for the weekend. If you've never driven Highway 101 along the Northern California coast, it's beautiful during the day and kind of a nightmare at night. Like long stretches with no other cars, no cell service, barely any lights. Kind of ominous, really. I left my parents' place around 8 p.m. on a Sunday, which was stupid in hindsight. I should have just stayed the night and driven back Monday morning. But I had an early shift and figured I'd rather just knock out the drive. Famous last words, I guess. The first couple hours were fine. The stretch I was on had narrowed down to a 2-lane road at that point. That's how most of rural 101 is once you get north of the bay. It was somewhere around Trinidad when the fog started rolling in. Fog on that part of the coast isn't unusual, but this was different. Within maybe 5 minutes, it went from clear visibility to barely being able to see 20 feet ahead of my car. It was actually really bad, worse than I'm describing. I slowed down to maybe 35 and kept going. The smart thing would have been to pull off and wait it out, but there's really not a lot of places to stop on that stretch. And honestly, I just wanted to get home. I figured if I took it slow, I'd be fine. Here's the thing about fog that thick, though, and any California driver knows this, but it messes with your sense of space. You can't see landmarks, you can't tell how far you've gone, you can't see what's coming up ahead. It's disorienting as hell, especially when you're already tired. After another half hour or so of driving, I saw a figure standing off the side of the road. I say figure because that's genuinely what it looked like at first. Just a shape on the shoulder, maybe 50 feet ahead. As I got closer, I could see it was a person, a guy based on how tall it was, and he was just standing there facing the road. He wasn't walking or waving me down like he needed a lift, and it didn't look like he was on the phone either. He was genuinely just standing there. I slowed down even more as I passed because I was worried about clipping him if he stepped out into the road. He didn't move though. He didn't even turn his head to watch my car go by, which was really creepy. I got a good look at him as I passed, and there was nothing about his face that struck me as particularly unusual. My first thought was maybe his car broke down somewhere and he was waiting for a ride, which would make sense, right? Except I hadn't passed any cars on the shoulder, and there was no reason for him to be standing in that exact spot facing that exact direction. There was nothing there. I thought about turning around to ask if he needed help, but something about the whole thing felt wrong. It wasn't my problem, so I just kept driving. About 10 minutes later, though, I saw him again. I'm not exaggerating, it was the same guy. Same build, same dark clothes, same stance on the shoulder. The only difference was that this time he was on the left side instead of the right, but everything else was identical. I actually said "what the hell" audibly out loud to myself.
And yes, that is absolutely true. About if Carpenter has taught us anything, it's that, yes, don't trust fog. It almost feels alive when you see in this. That's for sure. Absolutely. Especially what you see outside my front door in October at like 11 in the morning.
Because there was no way this guy could have gotten ahead of me. I was the only car on the road, and there weren't any cross streets or shortcuts or anything like that. The only explanation was that it was a different person who just happened to look exactly like the first guy and was standing in exactly the same weird way. I didn't want to look at him as I passed, but I couldn't help myself. I had to confirm whether it was the same guy, and after getting a good look, I was dead certain it was. But this time, the guy actually locked eyes with me as I passed, and I couldn't look away fast enough. Seeing his head snap to my eyes was really freaky, and I instantly regretted making eye contact. I sped up a little, not a lot, because the fog was still thick and I wasn't trying to drive off the road, but I sped up enough that I was pushing 45. I wanted distance between me and whatever the hell was going on back there. The fog got even worse after that, though. I could barely see the center line at that point, so I really had no choice but to slow back down. I was having trouble thinking straight, which I attributed to the mixed effect of how tired I was, how hard it was to drive, and what I had just seen. I kept trying to rationalize it, but I couldn't. My train of thought was interrupted, though, because not 3 minutes later, my headlights exposed something ahead. There was another person up there, only this time he was standing in the middle of the road. I had no choice but to stop, which is exactly what I did. This time, he was wearing a hood that was covering his face, so I couldn't see what exactly he looked like, but I had a feeling it was the same guy. He once again didn't move, which is when I started really getting scared. We were at a standstill, and even though I couldn't see his face, I could feel him looking at me. I didn't know what to do. I flashed my brights at him a few times, trying to get him to move out of the way or at the very least react, but he didn't. I put the car in reverse, and when I looked in my rearview mirror, I nearly died. There was someone behind me. There was a person back there, creeping towards my car. I yelled, "Holy shit," and put the car back in drive. I was boxed in, but I didn't care. There was an actual threat on my life now. I pulled hard to the right, crossing into the opposite lane to get around the guy blocking the road ahead. The guy didn't move, and I thought I was in the clear. But then something hit my car from behind. It wasn't just a light tap. It was violent. The whole back end of my car jolted to the right, and I heard this awful crunching sound, like metal on metal. I maintained control of the car and kept driving, thinking I had gotten into an accident with another car. But when I checked my mirrors, there was nothing behind me. Nothing at all, not even those people. As if the situation wasn't already freaky enough, that made it so much worse. I wasn't waiting, though. I sped off as fast as I was comfortable going with how heavy the fog was. By the time I hit the 101 interchange, I could actually see again, and for the first time, I felt my brain starting to relax. But the more I calmed down, the more I thought about what had happened. And this might sound surprising, but I genuinely concluded that I hallucinated everything. Here's the thing. I had been driving for almost 4 hours at that point. I was exhausted. I had been staring into fog for God knows how long, barely able to see anything, completely alone on a dark highway. So an extremely vivid hallucination didn't seem that far-fetched to me. Why it was so oddly specific was beyond me, but there was no other explanation for me having seen those people or having felt a wreck that didn't actually happen. By the time I made it home, I was just ready to sleep the whole thing off and try to forget about it. But then I walked around to the back of my car. The rear bumper was destroyed. There was a massive dent running almost the entire width of it, which meant whatever hit me had hit me way harder than I thought. It also meant that I actually had been hit, meaning I hadn't hallucinated anything. I stared at the dent for like 5 minutes. There wasn't any paint transfer, which there definitely would have been if I had been hit by another car. But if it wasn't another car that had hit me, I had no idea what could have caused such considerable damage. I did end up calling the cops to report what I saw, but it was more so just to get the info out there. I've thought about that night a lot over the past 4 years. I've gone through every possible explanation I could think of. What I've accepted is that I hallucinated the figures, and in my panicked attempt to drive off, I hit a guardrail post or a mile marker or something like that. The thing that gets me is this, though. I can accept a hallucination, but for me to hallucinate one thing, the figures, while actually experiencing the other, the crash, is something I have trouble accepting. The fact that there was actually damage to my car has always made me think there was something more malicious going on that night.
Hey, we're arts.
Well, maybe that fog wasn't really fog, but it was just more weed, bro. That could be that. And that's what lets him hallucinating that figure. But either way, yeah, it proves just how scary that shit can actually be. And why it's best to respect it, at least, or avoid it when you can. As we've got our finished Caitlin right here. Oh, yeah. And I think yes, we'll be having this put up tomorrow. Of course, it's going to be an early morning on account of the whole home repair and all that stuff happening with the property managers coming in to do all those fixings. And yeah, besides that, there's also other details we've got, like our good we were coming around the mountain to doing issue 8 of Encrypted. But of course, first we have these gouache paintings to do and the cards to do. Although the cards are an actual commission, while the gouache paintings are things I'm just doing myself. So I have to take care of those and get those out of the way besides everything else to then get into day-in, day-out work on getting Encrypted finished so we can get at least, the next 4 issues and have the idea of, well, having 11 comic books done and having so many of them shipped already that, yeah, we'll be in the middle of making issue 8 when issue 5 will be printing and shipping. So we are we are definitely keeping things in motion in a way that I was hoping would be what we would eventually be able to actually pull off. And I mean, the fact that I've gotten this far with the actual releasing of things is already something that, I mean, well, hey, I like how far I've gotten, but there's still plenty more because I did set a lot more for myself. So that will be something to see later on. But tell me what you thought of Our Lady right here. If she fits up to the standards of Gen 13, Now, what I did makes her look more like what you saw Fairchild in the Adam Hughes Gen 13 comic than how J. Scott Campbell drew her. Which, considering how much J. Scott Campbell stuff I have, is interesting to see. Because I have certainly a lot less of Adam Hughes's work than I have of Campbell's work. But Forever says you have been doing great. Well, that's great to hear. But of course, proving it by continuing to do this on with the next 3 years after this to be doing other comics between finishing Encrypted and then doing Justice for One, and then we've got those other comics. We've got Slick, and we've got Pain Machines to do. And Forever says she's looking mighty fine. And RJ says she looks cool. Well, then, she might be styling, and we might be seeing her, being moved on upwards and outwards towards somebody that would want to bring it home sometime in the future. At least that's what I would like to think. So until then, I want to thank you all for watching. Subscribe to the channel. We'll hit 10,000 subs. Become a member today and shop my art store with the first link in the description. You can buy my art or commission me or support me with a donation. Or you can go and pre-order issue 5 of my comic book Encrypted, where a regular copy is $5, an autographed copy is $10, an autographed and sketched in copy is $20, or you can get a 1-year subscription for $60, or 1-year subscription with your copies autographed for $90. So remember, I've got shorts tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 and 6, a new video at 6:30, and live again at 10. And until then, felines, slam it, lick it, suck it, and see you, Space Cowboy.